Money can enter adequately into the relations that form the continuity of the economy only because, as a concrete value, it is nothing but the relation between economic values themselves, embodied in a tangible substance. This significance of money shows itself further, in an empirical way, as stability of value, resulting from its interchangeability and lack of specific qualities. This is regarded as one of the outstanding and most useful characteristics of money. The length of the series of economic activities, which is a precondition for the continuity, the integration, and the productivity of the economy, depends upon the stability of the value of money, without which long-range calculations, large-scale enterprises, and long-term credits would be impossible. So long as one considers only the price fluctuations of a single object, one cannot determine whether the value of the object changes and the value of money remains stable or vice versa. Stability of money value becomes an objective fact only when price decreases of a commodity or group of commodities are accompanied by price increases elsewhere. A general rise in prices would indicate a decrease in the value of money, and when that occurs, the stability of money value is destroyed. This is only possible because money has certain qualities beyond its function as the indicator of the value relations of specific objects. Thus, distinguishing qualities render money an object of the market and subject it to business cycles, quantitative changes, and autonomous movements. They deprive money of its absolute position as an expression of relations and force it into a relative position, so that it no longer reflects a relation, but has relations. Only to the extent that money, true to its essence, is isolate from such influences does it have a stable value, from which it follows that price fluctuations do not signify a change in the relations of money to objects, but only changing relations among objects themselves. This implies that an increase in the price of one object corresponds to a fall in the price of another. Insofar as money really has the essential quality of value stability, this results from its function of expressing the economic relations between objects, or the relations that render things economically valuable, in abstract quantitative terms, without itself entering into these relations. Thus, the function of money is all the more important, the livelier and more extensive are the changes in economic values. Wherever the values of goods are definitely and permanently fixed, exchange in kind is easily carried on. Money corresponds to the condition of change in mutual value relations because it offers an exact and flexible equivalent for every change of value. The variability of these relations illustrates most clearly that the economic value of an object consists in the exchange relationship to all other objects. Every partial shift requires other balancing movements and makes us aware of the relativity within the whole. Money is nothing but the symbol of this relativity, and thus we can understand the fact mentioned earlier, that the need for money is connected with the fluctuation of prices, whereas barter presupposes fixed prices. The distinctive significance of money emerges theoretically as well as practically only with a fully developed monetary economy. The symbol that represents money in the first stage of its gradual development keeps it at the same time among those objects whose mere relation to each other it is meant to symbolize. Medieval theory regarded value as something objective. It required the seller to ask the just price for his commodity and occasionally attempted to fix this price by regulation. Value was considered to inhere in the object as a quality of its isolated existence, with which it entered the act of exchange, regardless of the relations between buyer and seller. This concept of value, which corresponds with the substantial absolutic worldview of the age, is particularly appropriate to a barter economy. A piece of land in exchange for services rendered, a goat for a pair of shoes, a jewel for 20 masses for the dead, these were things with which certain value sentiments were so closely connected that their values might well appear as objectively corresponding to each other. The more direct the exchange and the simpler the circumstances, so that the position of the object is not determined by a multitude of comparable relations, the more does the value appear as a quality of the object. The straightforward assurance with which such an exchange was carried out was reflected in the idea that it was brought about by an objective quality of the things themselves. Only the incorporation of the single object in diversified production and in many-sided exchange movements suggests that its economic significance lies in its relation to other objects and is reciprocal, and this coincides with the growth of a money economy. That the meaning of the economic object is constituted by this relativity, and that the significance of money is to become the clear expression of this relativity, are facts that come to be realized by their reciprocal influence. In the Middle Ages, it was assumed that there was a direct relation between object and money price, i.e., a relation based upon the independent value of each, which could and should find a just expression. The error of this substantialist interpretation is the same as that which asserts a direct connection between an individual and the content of any right, as though the nature of the person as such, regardless of any external conditions, would have a just claim to this competency. The individualistic conception of the rights of man provides an example. In reality, right is only a relation between men and is consummated only in relation to the interests, objects, and absolute powers which we call a content of law, a right in the narrower sense. Such rights do not have any predictable relation to an individual which might be interpreted as just or unjust. Only when such a relationship develops and has established itself in norms is it possible for the norms, referring to a single person in a specific matter, to characterize that person's power of disposal over something as just. Thus there may be, indeed, a just price for a commodity, but only as the expression of a definite, well-adjusted exchange relationship between this commodity and all others, and not as a consequence of the nature of the commodity itself or the amount of money itself, which stand in no relation to each other and have no reference to the just or the unjust. The significance of money in representing the economic relativity of objects, which is the source of its practical functions, is not a ready-made reality. Like all historical phenomena, it discloses its pure concept, its function and place in the realm of ideas, only gradually. This has its counterpart in the fact that all commodities could be regarded as money in a certain sense. Every object that is exchanged for B, and in turn for C, plays the role of money independently of its tangible qualities. It expresses the fact that B, A, and C are exchangeable with each other, and it expresses the rate at which they can be exchanged. This happens with innumerable objects. In fact, the further back we trace cultural development, the larger the number of very different objects we discover that perform the function of money in a more or less rudimentary fashion. So long as objects are measured against each other or exchanged with each other in natura, their subjective and their economic, objective qualities, their absolute and their relative significance are as yet unseparated, they cease to be money or to be capable of being money to the extent that money ceases to be an object of use. Money becomes more and more a symbol of economic value, because economic value is nothing but the relativity of exchangeable objects. This relativity, in turn, increasingly dominates the other qualities of the objects that evolve as money, until finally these objects are nothing more than embodied relativity.